Hello, everybody. Welcome into the NBA Front Office Show. We made it. The NBA, the regular season is here. Let's go. We've got real NBA games tonight. Oh, I can't wait. I'm Trevor Lane, joined by Keith Smith. Hit that subscribe button. What a great time of year, Keith. I'm so excited. You texted me earlier today and mentioned that you woke up at about 5 a.m. because you were so fired up about today. This is how opposite we are in terms of our sleep patterns. I was so fired up about today that I didn't fall asleep until about 30 minutes before you woke up. But you're the early riser. I'm the night owl. That's the way it goes.
Yeah, man, I was beyond excited. I did, for everybody wondering, I was intelligent enough to not text you. I knew not to. So
I appreciate
I
that.
got a walk. I went and walked 4 miles this morning while listening to some podcasts, NBA podcasts. I was so excited. I got my exercise done early. I got my daughter off school, and then I just been working and putting stuff together and everything. We'll keep the small talk to a minimum because we've got a jam-packed show today. We're going to cover off on the extensions. Yesterday was the extension deadline for a whole bunch of players, and a bunch of big deals got done. So we're going to cover off on those. And then, as promised, we're going to get into our East-West standings predictions, our conference finals, and our NBA finals. So we're really excited. It's time, man. We got games that count just literally hours away. So as we record this, so cannot wait.
Let's go. All right, let's get into the extensions. Where do you want to start?
Yeah, let's start with Aaron Gordon because that was the veteran extension that got done. Everybody else was on a rookie deal. So just so folks know a little bit of background, extensions for veteran players and rookie scale players had to get done yesterday. That was the deadline. And for veteran players, it's guys with 2 or more years left on their contract. The reason Gordon's got done, to save the Nuggets some money next year, he actually opted in to his contract for next year. And then he added 3 new years onto that. It's a 3-year it ends up totaling 4 years, 133 million when you add in the player option, but it's like 3 years, 110 is what he added, 111, like in that range. So Denver's like, that's it. They got their core locked up. Jokic, Murray, Gordon, Porter, that's their core guys. They obviously moved on from Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. They're going a little younger at that spot. And then they're relying on a bunch of kind of veterans that are on maybe the other side, like Saric and Westbrook off the bench, and a bunch of kids that they're hoping can really step forward and play big roles. Christian Brown, Peyton Watson, Julian Strawther. So it's going to be kind of fun to watch this Nuggets team transition into, can they backfill the production with younger players and vets on really going to have to be vet minimum type deals moving forward because they're really locked into this core group now.
Yeah, and you know, when you say they moved on from Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, I don't think that was necessarily by choice. I think a lot of that was the new CBA coming into play. Like if they had their pick, they would keep Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. But good to see that, you know, they lock up Aaron Gordon and that he was able to work with the team a little bit in terms of picking up that option for next year. You know, he's gotten to a point where his just mind meld with Jokic is fantastic. His ability to make those backdoor cuts, especially along the baseline, he knows exactly where to be. It's hard to replace that, and that's a big part of the Nuggets' offensive weapon. Their success is largely reliant upon that chemistry that they've got as a team, and so keeping it all together is certainly important for them. I am a little bit worried about it. We'll talk about them when we get into our standings predictions, but overall, you know, good on them for getting this done with Aaron Gordon.
Yeah, I completely agree. And he has increasingly over the last few seasons with Denver, really like his 3 full years with Denver, which it's crazy to think this is already his 4th full season with the Nuggets this upcoming season. But maybe that's rougher for me because being here in Orlando, like I still think of Aaron Gordon as like Magic draftee and still kind of a kid. But he is increasingly kind of become some semblance of their backup center too. He plays about 10% of his minutes at center. So that's another key role that gets, I think, overlooked a little bit in his value. Because I saw some people saying, really, like $30 million for Aaron Gordon when he's going to be, you know, in his 30s. Like, is that too much? And I think it's okay. I think he's already started to adapt his game a little bit with a lack of athleticism, and that's not to say he has a lack of athleticism, but
Right.
as it
Weird to say that about
got,
him.
yeah, but as it's kind of like not what it once was, right? He doesn't
Sure.
jump out of the gym on every play anymore. But what he has done is he's gotten stronger, his positioning is better, all the things, any little bit he's lost there, he's offset with just being a smarter player. And I think eventually you'll see him do a little bit like Blake Griffin and some others did, step out and shoot more jump shots, even more 3-pointers, and maybe eventually becomes a guy who hits pretty consistently from three, because that's always been a little bit of a missing part of his game. That's never been super consistent. And last year he was only at 29% from three, and didn't take too many, but we'll see, if it goes. But I'm okay with this deal. I actually feel better about this one than I do Jamal Murray's, kind of surprisingly, just because I'm a little worried about Murray. Did look better at the end, but we'll get more into that when we talk the Nuggets and the standings. I do want to counter one thing just because I can't let it go by.
Yeah.
I don't think it was the new CBA with Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, because they could
You
have
think
kept
they
him.
really just let him go?
Yeah, I think their ownership is cheap. They've been cheap in the past, and I think they have a cheap ownership group that is like, we've got other guys that can fill in for them. We're not going beyond that. Now the reports were they matched the offer that Orlando did, but I've also heard counter reporting to that it wasn't exactly matched. There would maybe they in like on its face they matched it, but there were like team options and
Sure.
non-guarantees and other stuff in there. But yeah, so I think that was just more of, they could have done that. Yeah, would it have cost them maybe Dario Saric on the non-taxpayer MLE? Okay, so you could have probably given him a minimum and done it that way. But I think they just got a little cheap on KCP.
Okay. Well, that's interesting. If that's what it was, you know, obviously, I think with the newer CBA, it's more understandable for them to make the decision.
Sure.
If they did that under the old CBA, we would definitely be saying they're cheap, right? I mean, that would be, they'd be catching a lot more flack for it too, I think.
Yeah.
All right, what's the next extension that we
All
need
right,
to
let's
get
go
to?
over to Houston, because they got two done that were really
Yeah.
kind of in the balance. We didn't know the Rockets weren't going to spend a ton of time on it, but they had a path where they could have been a cap space player next summer, but it might have cost them Fred VanVleet. We'll see. Now they're definitely not going to be.
Nope.
So the two of them, just so we put them out there, Jaylen Green, fairly unique type of extension for a player of his status with the amount per year he got paid. He did a 3-year, it ended up being about 105 and change $1 million extension with a player option on the end. And then Alperen Şengün did 5 years, 185 million would have been a bargain. 185 million for him. And that also has a player option on the end. Player options on 5-year extensions have really not been a thing very often.
Yeah.
It was Jason Tatum and Donovan Mitchell got the last two of those. And those guys were obviously on max deals. So non-max extension for Şengün, but got the player option. So my guess is that was the give and take, right? Was, hey, I'll do a little bit less, but you got to give me the player option than Jaylen Green. Much shorter extension. And there it is. You've got it up on the screen over on Spot Track. Just so everybody asks, these are estimates right now. We don't know.
Right.
That's why they're in purple. They just got signed yesterday. We'll get those details out there as soon as we can. But yeah, I think for Houston, the Şengün one, great. Just done. No, nothing more to be said. That's he's awesome. It's that's a good deal. The Green one, it really kind of depends on how you feel about Jaylen Green. If you think Jaylen Green is the guy he was in March last year, then you feel great about this extension. If you think Jaylen Green is the guy he was for the first few months of last season, you're probably a little bit more sketchy about, did we really need to lock in this money when we have Reed Shepherd, and why did we do it this way? But I don't really have an issue with this.
I mean, I guess for me, and perhaps this is a little, Lakers PTSD coming in here. You hate seeing those player options on the end of these, at least from the team perspective. Player options are the scourge of the earth. They are absolutely brutal for teams to deal with. So, especially the Jaylen Green one, like if it's going to be a 3-year deal, like to add a player option on the end of it, that's a little wonky at best. But I like Şengün a lot. He's one of my very favorite players in the NBA to watch. He's fantastic, and so I get it. But in my mind, from the team perspective, player options should only come in for guys like you said, like Tatum, like guys where it's, hey,
No brainer,
You're getting the
superstar.
max. What do you want? You tell us what you want your contract to look like, and we're going to give you that. And that's the top tier guys. Otherwise, you hate seeing player options come in. I get it's a negotiating thing here where maybe they got them for a little bit cheaper, so it makes
Mhm.
sense. But still, those can be problematic for clubs down the line.
Yeah, 100%. I'm not going to counter that at all. The Şengün one, again, I don't mind so much because if you got a discount a little bit on it because you gave them that I think makes sense. The Green one, we were talking about a little bit before we started. Seth Partnow was calling out some of these extensions as not being great. And one of the things that I think he was one of the people who said was with Green, let's say he's awesome on the first 2 years of this extension.
Yeah,
Well, then he's going to opt out, and you benefited nothing for the next couple of years. That's where you
yeah,
really these rookie scale extensions could really pay off because you've got them on less than max deals. If he's not good, well, then you just gave away $70 million, and it's like, yeah, we're kind of stuck here, and he didn't see it all the way through. So I kind of get that thinking on it. Overall, I think within their team structure with still a bunch of guys still on rookie scale deals after
hmm
this. You've got Smith and Thompson and Eason and Whitmore. And then you've got Van Vliet. You've got some flexibility there. I would not be surprised if that turns into a decline that team option, but then give him with the idea of we're going to re-sign him to like a 3-year deal that then spreads the money out a little bit more. Maybe it's like 3 years, 90 million or something, and you save like 15 million bucks in year one. That would make a lot of sense. So but I think their cap sheet can handle these, but you're absolutely right. Those player options can prove to be problematic if the player pops. Or if the player stinks, that's when it's almost
that's
even worse
it
because
is
then they're going to pick it up and you're going to be like, well, now we're kind of stuck with this.
right. Exactly. Exactly.
All right,
Okay.
let's stick on
What
the
else do we have?
apparently it was Jaylen extension day yesterday too, because the next guy, let's go to Jaylen Suggs with the Orlando Magic. 5 years, 150.5 million. Number was big. His actually, this is the Magic love this. His is actually going to be a descending deal. And of course, because it's the Magic, it finishes in a team option because that's what they do in Orlando.
hmm
So
Smart.
35 roughly probably going to be right around 35.8 million in year one. That'll finish up with a 24.4 million team option in that last year. That is what my assumption is with this. The Magic know they're going to give Paolo a max next summer, which will start with the 26-27 season. And we should have
hmm
said this too. All of these extensions are all starting next year, not the year that's starting right now. These all start next season. So when Paolo's kicks in, you'll now have Franz on a max, you'll have Paolo on a max. By putting Green on a below max and a descending, that offsets those two a little bit. So that just gives you a little bit more balance. Again, the books can really afford this in Orlando because they've kept things relatively clean and relatively good. If you look at it, a couple people I've seen been like, it's a bit much for Wendell Carter on his new contract that starts in a
Yeah.
couple years. It's a little bit more than I really liked for Goga Batadze and a couple other guys. But for the most part, they've avoided bad contracts. And I think they're in a really good place.
Now, there are people who will look at this and they will say $35 million for a dude who averaged 13 points per game last season is a bit crazy. But that's where you have to go. You have to watch. You have to
Yeah.
watch Jaylen Suggs and see what it is that he brings. A lot of his impact, 13 points, 3 assists, 3 boards. That it doesn't sound like much, does it? Doesn't sound like much, but a lot of his impact is felt in areas that don't show up on the standard box score. Defensively, he is an absolute terror. It's a lot of fun to watch, but he is just chaos for opposing teams. And then, of course, he got his 3-point percentage up last season on 5 attempts, shot 40% from three. So I understand why the Magic did this, and I like the descending quality of this contract. I think that's awesome. And then the team option at the end, in terms of the way they structured this, I love it. Is it an overpay? Maybe. I mean, normally if you're paying that much, you want a guy to be at least have the potential to be a 20-point per game scorer. But I mean, man, he is so fun. Just watch this guy play defense. He's fantastic. So I don't have that much of a problem with it, especially when we factor in that it's descending and has the team option at the end.
Yeah, everything there, spot on. And he's so good defensively. Like, I don't think people really, because the Magic are just starting to come, right, for people to see them more. Like they had 2 national TV games last year. So like
Yeah.
I don't know how many people were watching them until the playoffs hit. He is so good defensively. His playmaking took a jump last year. Just his ability to bring the ball up against pressure was big. It much improved last year. They run so much through Paulo and Franz that I'm with you. Normally, people are like, well, if you're going to pay anywhere near a max, guy's got to be a 20-point per game guy. They don't necessarily want him to be that because that's Paulo and Franz for them. So it's fill your role, fill it perfectly, and off we go. So yeah, he's good. You want to move to the next Jaylen?
Sure.
All
Let's
right.
do it.
Jaylen Johnson will head up a little north here from Orlando to Atlanta. Jaylen Johnson did a 5-year, $150 million extension, so $30 million for him on that one. We've just got it in flat again. We'll find out, with this one. But $150 million, I think, to your point, you said this before we started. It felt like people were like, "Wait, what?" Like for 2 now. But if you watched the leap he took last year before he got hurt, because he had, I think it was a wrist or hand injury, he had taken the leap. He had like done that year 2 to year 3 leap where it was like, okay, we're here now. He was a better playmaker, rebounder, defender, shooter, scorer. Like everything was much improved. And this just proves he's, I think, for all purposes right now, he's the Hawks' number 2 guy in the franchise pecking order behind Trae Young.
Yeah, and I think that if you watch what he did last season, he's fantastic. This guy's great. This is, I think part of it is he got injured last season, and so people didn't see him quite as much because I saw a lot of the reaction was, "What? Why are they overpaying him?" No. I mean, on the trajectory he's on, it's very possible that this winds up being a bargain deal. But that could be within this next year. Like he is excellent. I'm really excited for him. Hopefully he stays injury free. But I mean, you saw it on yesterday's show. I believe I picked him as my most improved player, winning that award because he's going to get the recognition this season. I think the people that are questioning the contract right now, by the end of the year, they're going to be going, okay, I get it on this deal.
I'm going to add one more thing on this one because it'll tie into the next guy we're going to talk about too. I think people are still struggling to adjust to the new norms of where the cap is. $30 million is $8.6 million under a max salary next season for a guy of his years of service. So the 25% of the cap max is $38.6 million. At least that's what it projects to. So if he comes in at 30, and that's if this is a flat deal, if it comes in under that, like 27 or so, then like that's no brainer for me. Like 11 million under the max, like, let's go all day long for Jaylen Johnson. So next guy, last true rookie scale extension, Corey Kispert of the Wizards. You don't need to pull it up if you don't want to.
Okay.
But 4 years, $54 million for Kispert. It's front loaded. The Wizards like to do a front loaded deal. We saw that with Denny Avdia last year. So descending last year's a team option. I saw a lot of people saying that's a lot of money for Corey Kispert. Why so much? Over $13 million a year. One, Corey Kispert's actually pretty good. This is the old, well, he's just a white shooter kind of mindset.
Right.
And he's not, right? Like he can put the ball on the floor a little bit. He can rebound a little. He's a pretty good playmaker. This is a really fair value deal. And what this deal is, this is basically a mid-level exception contract. And it'll actually be less than the mid-level exception, maybe as soon as like a year from now. So we're right. Like already there. Like I'd give Corey Kispert the MLE all day long. In Washington, and again, a team, I know they get Jordan Poole and Kyle Kuzma and a couple other guys, but their cap sheet, if you look beyond a year or two out, it's pretty clean. They're in pretty good shape. They actually saved a little bit of money by doing it this way versus carrying his cap hold into the summer. They actually created about 1.8 million more in cap space, or about 3 million more, I'm sorry, in cap space, which is kind of a fun wrinkle. And then the last one we're going to touch on real quick, unless you have thoughts on Kispert, sorry.
No thoughts there on Kispert.
We've just got a packed show and we're on a tight timeline today.
Sure.
Jaden Hardy with the Mavericks. Now, this isn't a rookie scale extension because he was a second rounder, and this could have got done any time. This one also has not gone official. All those others are official and done. But he reportedly is going to do I believe it was, let me find it. I think it was 3 years, 3 years, 18 million. So 6 million a year, basically taxpayer MLE-ish amount. I think that's okay for the Mavs. I think that's so low that even if it goes sideways, now you have a throw-in salary in a trade later. And if he continues to grow and become a better player, you end up with an extremely team-friendly contract. This is kind of very different player. This kind of reminds me of what Celtics did with Peyton Pritchard, where they extended him and everybody's like, that's like, why did you even bother? This guy was barely on the court. Now it looks like a really super team friendly because he's a regular rotation player. For
Yeah.
Boston, that's where Jaden Hardy could land out.
Yeah, I like it. I thought it was a smart move there on Hardy. Is that all of our extensions?
That's it. That was all of them, my friend. We zipped
Cool.
through them.
Okay. Yeah, I know we wanted to get through them so we can get to our standings predictions. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Keith,
Let's make some
let's
people
go
mad.
Let's do it. Let's get some people good and angry as they are, as is always the case. Don't forget, while you're good and angry, hit the subscribe button so we can wear our Halloween costumes on Halloween.
Yes,
let's get that going. We're getting there slowly but surely. Hit the subscribe button, everybody. Keith, do you want to share your Eastern Conference standings predictions first?
Yeah, if I can remember how to do this, because you just taught me before we started. So let's see. I think I can do it.
I see it.
There it is. Oh, the banner's covering it. We'll move the banner. All right. So oops.
There you go.
This is why we don't both run the show every day.
We've got both hands on the steering wheel.
Everything. All right. So my East standings predictions. I have the Celtics at the top. I don't think it's going to be anywhere near as wide of a margin as it was a year ago. I think it'll be a lot tighter, but I still feel the best about them of any team in the East, especially because my next 3 teams, New York, Philly, Milwaukee, this is just the order I think it'll go in. But you can put them in any order you want. Like, I wouldn't argue with you on those teams very much about that. I wouldn't even argue if somebody wanted to say, I think Cleveland, Orlando, or Indiana maybe could be in that mix too. I'm not going to fight that. Part of the reason why is New York's already got injury issues. Philly's, for those who haven't seen it, Embiid and Paul George are not going to play opening night against the Bucks. Chris Middleton's not going to play for the Bucks, but Embiid's not going to play in the first week. Doesn't sound like Paul George is going to play in the first week. Chris Middleton hasn't gone 5-on-5 yet. That's why those 3 teams, I'm like, I think they're the next 3 best teams, but I don't know. I'm going to make a prediction right now. One of those 3 is not going to finish in the top 4. I don't know who it is. One of them is going to fall out, and somebody out of the next group I have kind of together in a bucket is Cleveland, Orlando, and Indiana. One of those 3 is going to jump up and take a home court advantage spot. I just don't know who it is on either side, and I didn't want to just throw a completely wild guess at it. So I feel most confident in this being the order, but I do think something's going to happen there. Then Miami and 8. I think we were talking about this before. Basically, everybody who's not making a homer pick or trying to do something really hot takey is going to have this as the top 8. But I will say this again, too. Just years of doing this tells us one of these teams is going to fall apart. Season's not going to go the way they want.
Sure.
You're going to have injuries. And somebody out of the Atlanta, Toronto, Charlotte, Detroit, Chicago mix will play better and will end up in the top 8. Yes, I eliminated Washington and Brooklyn. I think they're the 2 worst teams in the NBA. I don't know that either one of them cracks 20 wins next season. So that's why I've got them at the bottom. And then I don't want to step on a point you may make, but you can reiterate it for emphasis. When you get to 9 and 10 in the East for the play-in tournament, you're kind of like, well, someone has to make it. So who do I think it'll be? I picked Atlanta and Toronto. Wouldn't be surprised if it was Charlotte jumped in there. Maybe Atlanta's better than I'm giving them credit for. They might be okay. I've been high on Charlotte because I think they may contend for the play-in tournament. What's also going to impact this is teams are going to tank hard. Like starting after the holidays when it's like, yeah, we're already kind of out of it. I think you're going to see teams really bottom out, not just to try to capture the flag, but to get into that top 5 and get one of those 5 great players in this upcoming draft, they're going to really bottom it up. So there it is. There's my East.
I like it. I like it. Let me share mine here. So mine is a little. I was worried. I'll be honest. I was worried that we were going to have the same thing. I think it was funny that you brought up that you'd have to take a guess at who's going to jump up in the East. I took that guess.
All right, I love
it. Here's what I've got. I've got the Cavs making that. Yep. Here's this may be an overreaction on my part. I'll freely admit. Apologies, Sixers fans.
It might not be.
But it might not be. I'm scared as hell. I'm scared as hell of the Sixers right now. Let's get into this. So the Celtics at the top, no question. New York, Mikal Bridges jumper. It might be the scariest thing that we're going to see even on Halloween. What?
Like what?
Yeah, I don't know.
Fine. Like why did you change it? Like,
and now it's like Bill Cartwright or something. I don't know. It's just
that is kind of who it reminds me of a little bit with the elbow kind of like flying out and stuff.
Gross. Yeah, it's gross. So I'm worried about that. So I'm not as confident anymore about the Knicks. I still think they're going to be good, but I'm not quite as confident. If suddenly Mikal Bridges can't shoot because he decided to mess with his jumper, like, come on, didn't Markelle Fultz teach us anything? And then number 3, I've got Cleveland jumping up into the 3rd seed. Again, that's my team that I've got making a big push up in the standings. I do think Evan Mobley, they unlocked something with using him at the 5. Orlando, I've got again just organic.
You something on Cleveland real quick, if I can. Yeah. How worried are you about the Max Strus injury? Because I'll say I'm not that worried about it. I mean, I want him to be there. They need him, but I think Isaac Okoro, Karis LeVert, and then Jalen Tyson, I think is really good. I think they've got the depth to cover for it. They need him more. Get him ready. They need him in the playoffs. That's where I think they definitely need him more than in the regular season. But I think they've got enough depth to cover for that.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And that's exactly what I was thinking with the Cavs too, is that yes, they're missing Max Strus, but Okoro, LeVert, I think they're covered there. Orlando, I think, is going to see organic growth. Milwaukee's
your adopted hometown Orlando Magic and not mine. You picked them higher than I did.
I'm higher on them than you are. I've got Milwaukee. Milwaukee's at 5. I just don't trust them. I just don't trust. They've flamed out 2 years in a row in the first round of the playoffs. I know they're saying all these things, but now you've got Giannis making noise about, well, if we don't win a championship, they're going to trade me, like kind of a reverse trade request or whatever that he's making this. So there's something funky there. It's an older team too. They could very well make me look stupid for this, but they've burned me the last 2 years. So I'm not doing it. I'm not putting them in the upper echelon of the East again. Indiana, I think they're going to be really good. I've got them as a 6th seed. I don't feel great about it. They could easily be the 3 seed, but I've got them as a 6 seed right now. And Philly, I just keep knocking them down because I keep looking at it. I'm like, geez, Joel Embiid's already starting the season out for the first week. He's talked about how he doesn't care about winning awards. He's not going to play 65 games. He's starting the NBA season out. I mean, what are we looking at? Maybe 55 games out of Joel Embiid? And what if those 55 don't coincide with the 60-ish or whatever that Paul George is going to play? What if they're both out for a stretch? Then you're picking up a bunch of losses. So that's what, and I don't think Philly is going to care too, but like Philly is going to want to avoid the play-in. I have them projected here not to avoid the play-in, but they're going to want to avoid the play-in. But aside from that, based on what we're seeing out of them right now, in terms of how they're handling Paul George and Joel Embiid, I think they're going to bubble wrap those two guys. They're going to bubble wrap them all season. We're going to see the Clippers all over again, where they're going to load manage the hell out of them. And then they're going to keep their fingers crossed and hope they're healthy for the playoffs. And that's what we're going to see. So I've got the standings reflecting that. And again, I'm probably overreacting to today's news. Maybe they end up a little bit higher, but in the moment, I had a hard time putting them ahead of these other teams.
I'm with you, man. I did keep them up there because I think they're going to get past this, but you might be right. This could be a lot closer to it. I will say on mine too, and I should have mentioned this when I was running through them. After New York, between Philly, Milwaukee, Cleveland, Orlando, and Indiana, I had them like separated by like 5 wins from 3 through 7. So it's not like we say it all the time when we're in season. Yeah. That's like a bad week. or a good week completely changes where you are in the standings. So I had them super compressed and tight. I had Miami just above 500 and making it in. I just don't know what to expect out of the Heat. And, it seems like you're pretty much in the same spot as me.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And that's where, I've got Miami coming in 8th. I've got the Atlanta Hawks in 9th. Toronto falls 10th. And then the Hornets I've got them in as 11th. The Bulls, I've got the Bulls down. Like if the Bulls roster as it currently sits is their roster all season, they would be higher. But I think they're going
Yep.
to move guys. I think they're going to
Agreed.
move guys in order to tank. Detroit, Washington, and then I need to scroll down a little bit, but everybody knows it's the Brooklyn Nets. Sitting
And
right there on the bottom.
I feel the same way with Brooklyn. If Brooklyn was going to keep all these veteran
Yeah.
guys, I'd put them above Washington, maybe even above like Detroit, Chicago. But I think Brooklyn and Chicago, they're gonna pull the vets off those teams and trade them away, and that's gonna cause them to fall down. All right,
Yeah.
it's your conference. You do the West first.
Okay. Western Conference. Let me jump over there. And oh boy, the West was
You're
tough.
pulling that up. I'll just pull the
The
banner
West,
up.
the
And
West
then
was
we'll hide it.
tough.
Yeah,
I mean,
the
so
bottom two
difficult
are
because
pretty easy.
yeah, I mean that's the easy part, the bottom two. But I mean, outside of that, good luck. I mean, you want to tell me, and this is where if people want to be pissed off, people want to say, "Oh, the Suns are going to be the 3 seed." Sure, they
Yeah.
absolutely could. Like, it doesn't feel good putting any of these teams in the spots that they're in, with the exception of OKC. I feel pretty good about OKC. I think they're the best
Yep.
team in the
Agreed.
conference. I think they're going to be the class of the conference. So that defensively, the things they're going to be able to do, the additions that they made. Yes, the Isaiah Hartenstein injury hurts them, but it's OKC. I've got them at the top. Then I've got Dallas with the Clay addition. Hopefully he finds his shooting stroke. We'll see there. Minnesota, I don't think removing Towns and adding Randall and DiVincenzo is going to be too big of a net negative for the Wolves. I think they're going to be okay. But again, if you want to, that's the thing between the 3 seed and the 8 seed in the West, it's a few games. So
Yeah.
it's hard to say there. But I have Denver finishing 4th. If I were to pick a team to drop out of the top 4, it's probably Denver. Nikola Jokic has been remarkably healthy. You have to wonder if he's due for some kind of a hiccup there. And then it's just tough, losing Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, the shooting they've lost. And then I don't know if I can trust Jamal Murray at this point. So Denver is the team that I think is actually the most vulnerable to drop out of the top 4, even though I think they also have an extremely high ceiling, maybe the highest ceiling outside of Oklahoma City of these 4 teams. Memphis, I've got in 5th. I think they're going to be great this season. I liked the addition of Zach Edey in the offseason. I think he fills a major need for them. And please just stay healthy. Just stay healthy, Memphis, because this should be a really good team. My homer pick has the Lakers in 6th. I'm just going to say, finally, this is the year they avoid the play-in. But again, I don't feel great about it because I don't feel great about putting Phoenix 7th. I like what Phoenix did this offseason, especially with the fact that they were signing only guys to minimum contracts. But my homer pick of the Lakers in 6th puts Phoenix in 7th. Sacramento. I'm high on the Kings, and I felt terrible that I couldn't move the Kings. This is the problem with the West. I think the Kings are going to be really good, better than people expect them to be. And I still can't move them higher in the Western Conference. Golden State. I like the way they've rebounded from the Klay Thompson situation. They might be better than last year. It's still hard to move up in the West, but I do have Houston getting into the playoffs, or into the play-in anyway, as the 10 seed, and New Orleans, just because there's so much of a logjam. There's just the roster is not set up properly right now. They're a talented team, and with a trade or two, they could easily become one of the best teams in the Western Conference. But I think the lack of a center is going to hurt them. And then I have the Clippers falling all the way out to the 12th seed. Although there were some comments coming out of Clippers camp or Clippers practice yesterday where guys were saying this was a great defensive team. We'll see what the Clippers defense looks like if they've suddenly found something there. But right now I've got them as the team falling out. And then I think pretty easy San Antonio, Utah, Portland as my bottom 3. So that's my Western Conference. And I mean, throw all these in a hat. Aside from the top one and the bottom, say 3, throw all these teams into a hat, mix them around, and whatever order they come out in, I'd be like, yep, I could see that happening. That's the Wild West.
And that's kind of what it's going to look like I did here as mine comes up on the screen. We have the same bottom 4.
Yeah.
5, I think, actually. Um, and I'm fully prepared for San Antonio Wembanyama to make us look stupid and for him to just be
Yes.
so good with the vets and them to be a playing tournament team. So I'll run through them. I'm going to go through this very quickly because I know we're pressed on time. I have nothing to add on the Thunder that you didn't already say. Minnesota, I think they're going to be fine. I think they may actually end up being slightly better. Julius Randle is pretty good, and I think he gives them a dimension they did not have with another guy who can really be someone who can be a playmaker for them, be a primary offensive option. Not that Karl-Anthony Towns can't handle the scoring load, but he's still kind of a playmaker dependent player. He needs to be set up a lot more. Where Randall's a guy, if Edwards doesn't have it going, Edwards is out. You throw him the ball and let him kind of do his thing. And I think Dante DiVincenzo is on a revenge tour now against the entire league for this. Dallas in Denver, kind of same thoughts as you. They're both going to be really, really good. It's almost a nod to the amount of respect they have for Jokic that I still have Denver as a top 4 team because I think he's that good. He will keep them there. Memphis, I'm there. I am with Phoenix, and we're about to find out how high I am on the Suns here in a couple minutes. As far as an overall team, I just think in the regular season, there's going to be nights they're just going to be missing guys, and it's probably going to cost them a handful of wins and push them down. But again, to reiterate what you said, then it's kind of like, cool, tell me whatever order you want. I feel good about the top 4. It's 5 through really 12 if you're still a Clippers believer. I'm not going to argue with you very much. Sacramento, Golden State, New Orleans, the Lakers, the Rockets. I wanted to put the Rockets in at least the play-in tournament. I think the Rockets are going to be that team we're going to look back and be like, they are way better than they were a year ago. And it's just not reflected in the standings because of how difficult the conference is. Like they may be a team we feel very good about, but I also think they could be 6th or 7th in the West too. Especially if their kids really take a leap forward. The Clippers, I'm not going to fully count them out. I like how they seem to almost be kind of galvanizing around. All right, cool. Everybody says we stink. We don't have PG. Kawhi's out. We're going to be bad. I kind of like a little bit of that. I already said it with Wemby. Utah, I think Utah's not even going to pull the whole, let's win a whole bunch of games early and then we'll start tanking. I think it's going to be on for them from day one. And I think Portland, they're going to try, but I just don't think they're very good. And I think Portland's another team that is, you start moving some of the vets and it's going to get real ugly real fast there in the West.
Capture the flag.
There it is. Yep, that's it, man. Everybody, it's him. It's Cooper Flag primarily, but it's the other 4 guys: Ace Bailey, Dylan Harper, VJ Edgecombe, Nolan Traore. Everybody's going to want one of those 5 guys in the draft, and they're all trying to get down there. And I can tell you, our buddy Bryce will tell you there's a couple other guys that he's thinking about nudging into that tier as well. And if there starts to be a couple more, dude, it's then like we might see 10 teams calling it around New Year's, being like, we're done, like we're out, which is, I mean, it's going to lead to a lot of bad basketball, but it is what it is.
Oh man, this is the tank race this year is going to be crazy, but exciting for the draft for next year. And we've got a full NBA season to talk about here, but next year's draft is going to be awesome.
Yeah. And let me add too, because everybody's going to be like, okay, the fat dude in the Celtics hat hates the Lakers. It's not that. My fear with the Lakers is that LeBron and AD don't have another 140 games in them. And if they don't, I don't see how they're any better than this. Like I really struggle to do that. If they both play another 140 games, they're going to be up closer to 6. Like
and in the
really
West,
think they'll be there.
They could win 45, 46, 47. They could win. 10th. They could be 100%. A well above 500 team and still end up.
I did win. I did it all the way down to the wins. Yeah. I had them at 44 wins. And that's not normally where you're going to be in the play-in tournament.
Exactly.
That should normally have you. I mean, you might be in the play-in tournament, but you're 7 or 8, not 10. And that's just where I have the Western Conference winning like a billion more games than the East. I think 1 through 8, the conferences are comparable in terms of once we actually get to the playoff teams. It's the fact that the West then has 3 or 4 teams that could all be playoff teams, and they're just not going to be. So,
right.
All right. Exactly. Let's move to let's do conference finals predictions. So we do conference finals. We don't run through the entire playoffs. So what is your East Finals?
I mean, maybe it's boring because it's just it's chalk, but it's Knicks Celtics. That's what I see as the conference finals in the East.
Okay. I went with Knicks. Knicks. I almost didn't pick the
I was
Celtics,
gonna
which
say,
would
are
have
you
been
taking your
crazy.
Celtics out
No,
of
no, no.
this? That was
No,
going to be
I
the
am
most
not.
surprising
Um,
moment in history in the history of the show.
I'm either going to get this really right or I'm going to get this really wrong. I
Uh-oh.
picked Boston and Philly. I I
Oh, okay.
I just I feel like Philly's going to have 1 year in them where it's going to be like we made a run, like we're actually there. And I think ultimately before those contracts are over, it's going to have fallen apart spectacularly
Mm,
on them. And it's going to be like Tyrese Maxey is awesome. And the 35 games a year combined Embiid and George play are pretty great too, but everything else is a mess. But this year, I think Philly may pull it off because I do what you said earlier is I think they're going to load manage the crap out of those guys, but I think they're going to play enough. I think Tyrese Maxey is so good.
he's great.
He's going to win them 35, 40 games on his own. They'll win another 8, 10 games with Embiid and George, and then they're gonna get the high enough seed that they get to the playoffs and make a run. My other option, I almost picked Milwaukee, was the other one that I really, really thought hard about getting in there. But yeah, I went with I would have had to flip flop them regular season standings wise. So I went Boston and Philly in the East.
Keith, why do you hate the Knicks?
Yeah, I don't. I don't trust their
Why do
depth,
you
and I
hate
don't.
pancakes?
Yeah, right. I don't trust them to stay healthy. Like that's
Okay.
my, and I'm afraid they're going to be just the way this roster is right now. I'm afraid they're going to be completely out of gas by the time we get to the playoffs. And I think they'll
Too shallow.
yeah, they just don't have enough guys. And I get it. Tibbs won't play them anyway. Okay, well, that's also a problem. Like I
Yeah.
think I'm very, very nervous about those guys being run completely in the ground. I also don't like that a lot of the statistical models don't like the Knicks. They're
Mm.
all been coming out recently. They just don't really like the makeup of that team. I also didn't love Josh Hart a couple days ago saying like, well, I don't really know how much I'll have the ball. Maybe I should go to the bench and stuff like that. I personally happen to agree with them, but I don't know. It just feels a little off. All right, let's do the West Finals.
So the West Finals. I mean, the easy pick for me is OKC. I've got OKC in the West Finals. After that, you want to tell me it's any number of teams. I'd be on board with that. I'm gonna say it winds up being Minnesota again in the West Finals. I'm gonna say that they get their defense matters in the playoffs. I think they've got defense, and I think Anthony Edwards continues to take another step forward. And so I'm gonna have Minnesota ultimately being there in the West Finals against the Oklahoma City Thunder.
So I am with you on Oklahoma City. We're in lockstep on that one. This is where I'm high on the Suns. I think
Mm-hmm.
they're my new Clippers, apparently. Like I'm just gonna be wrong every year. And then eventually be like, you idiot, stop picking them because you like their talent. But I like their talent. I like what they did. I love my guy. Oh, so he's like my favorite dude in
That's
the
what it
league.
is. That's
Yeah,
what it
that's part
is.
of it. It's not that. I'll say that. But yeah, I think it's gonna come together for them as a playoff team this year in ways it won't necessarily show in the regular season, but I think when they get to the playoffs, they're going to show up and I think I just got to believe Kevin Durant has one more playoff run in him to push for push for a title run. So there it is. All right, NBA Finals. You want me to
NBA
do mine
Finals.
first?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm going with like the chalkiest chalk pick of like everybody. I put it on Twitter today asking people, and by far and away, the number one response is Celtics versus Thunder.
Yeah.
That's what I'm picking too. Celtics versus Thunder. And call me a homer, but I'm picking the Celtics. I rode with them all year last year because I believed in the talent. I think in a lot of ways, we know they can do it. They get behind in a series, they get behind in a game. That doubt is not going to creep in the way it maybe did in the past. I think they'll get through the Porzingis stuff. I think he's going to come back with something to prove. And I just love the fact that you have Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Porzingis, and a whole bunch of guys coming back being like, everybody says we didn't play anybody, so we got to go prove it again. and Brown and Tatum angry about the way the summer went. Porzingis saying like I shouldn't even get a ring. I was barely a part of it, which is stupid nonsense. But like
Right.
you deserved your ring just with that one first half he had where he went bananas. But like they just feel like they have a different level of motivation than a lot of defending champions do because of a lot of the stuff that's gone down. And then add to you, Joe Mazzulla is a complete maniac saying crazy stuff every day and basically telling these guys, you suck and you've accomplished nothing. Go prove it to me. Like, I just think they're in a different place.
So I'm unfortunately in agreement in that it's going to be Thunder and Celtics. I wish we were opposed on that in some way, but I do think it's going to be Thunder and Celtics. But just to make it different, I'll throw my hat in for the Thunder. Say that they.
That's why. That's why. Not because it's the team in green.
Oh no, that's certainly part of it. No, that's certainly part of it. And but like if I was, this is not typically how it goes. By the way, in NBA history, the way it typically goes is you progress through the playoffs, you take your lumps, and then you finally break through. So based on what history tells us, if it was Thunder Celtics in the finals, the Celtics probably win, right? Because they've already hit that level. The Thunder don't know what it's like to be in that moment. They haven't had that learning experience yet. And so that's where if I was putting money on it, I would not pick the Thunder to win. This is mostly just I believe in OKC and the changes that they made, adding Alex Caruso. I think that's a big deal. He's a fantastic player. I think Isaiah Hartenstein is exactly what they need in the middle. And so that's why I've got OKC, and I'll make them my pick here to actually get through because I think they have the talent to do it. Again, am I going to say it's likely? No, I think if they played 10 times, the Celtics probably win 6 or 7 out of 10. But I'm going to say one of those ones that OKC would win happens.
Yeah, man. It's going to be great, right? It's all around. This is going to be awesome. We're getting a report from Shams. I don't know what this says because he left it very vague, but we'll figure that out later and figure out who he's talking about there. He said a sharpshooter on the Knicks radar. I'm going to get maybe Lonnie Walker. Maybe. So I don't know, but no, you've got
Marco Fultz.
You that would not be a sharpshooter. That would not be the description I would use for him. I know you've got some radio to go do and the like. So
they're calling me right now.
There it is. So we're gonna wrap it there, guys. Thanks everybody for hanging out and joining us. We love having you guys. Let us know where we got it wrong, and we'll see y'all tomorrow.
All right, sounds good. Thank you again, everybody. Let's go NBA basketball tonight. Make sure you subscribe. Till next time. See ya and stay safe.